What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 227 of the DFS Dose podcast, your fix of daily fantasy sports information, strategy, and analysis. I'm your host, Ben Hauver, joined as I always am by Joey Carrion. And on today's show, it's finally time. We are at that point of the year. It's rankings. All right. It's the time of the year where people are going on YouTube and they're searching up quarterback rankings, running back rankings, wide receiver rankings. And we need to be in that algorithm. So here we are, dropping our rankings episodes. We're going to be starting off with quarterback next week. We're going to have 2 running back episodes the following week, 2 wide receiver episodes, give you everything you need to know to dominate these best ball streets. If you're watching this video on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. Joey, how you doing, buddy? Ready to talk some quarterbacks?
I'm always ready to talk fantasy football with you, Ben. So should be a good episode.
Let's start off at the top, and there's not too much drama at the top. Our top 7s are the same group of players, albeit in a slightly different order. Both of us have Josh Allen and Justin Herbert as the 1 and 2. We have Lamar and Mahomes as our 3 and 4. They are switched. Mahomes is your QB3. Lamar is your QB4. I have that switched with Lamar at 3, Mahomes at 4. And where things get interesting is that Jalen Hurts is both of our QB5s. That is not the way that it's going in ADP. He is behind Burrow, Murray in some spots on some sites, QB6 on Underdog. So let's start off with the Mahomes and Lamar Jackson at 3 and 4. How closely are they for you? Is this a coin flip, or is Mahomes solidly ahead of Lamar? Where's the tier break for you in this top?
Yeah, I think the tier break is definitely after the top 4. I would consider Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar, and Patrick Mahomes as the clear-cut consensus top 4 fantasy football quarterbacks for 2022. And I think these are just the elite options for this year, personally. Going back to Lamar and Patrick Mahomes, I think it is pretty much a coin flip. Obviously, Lamar has that rushing upside that I think personally is unmatched in the NFL by any other quarterback besides maybe Jalen Hurts. But Patrick Mahomes is just such a talented player. He's still in one of the best offensive schemes in the NFL. You just know he's going to finish top 5 in fantasy points as long as he stays healthy. Obviously, the loss of Tyreek Hill impacts this offense quite a bit, but with the addition of MVS and Sky Moore through the draft, and then Justin Ross as an undrafted free agent, and then McCole Hardman is still there. They went out and signed Juju Smith-Schuster. They still have Travis Kelce. I think there's way more than enough talent to get the job done for the Chiefs in 2022. I think they'll be able to replace the production that Tyreek Hill is leaving behind, and for that reason, I still think Patrick Mahomes is a top fantasy quarterback in the league, and I think he's just a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. So that's kind of the tiebreaker for me when it comes to those two, but it's definitely close.
Yeah, to me, I'm just favoring the rushing upside a little more, but I think that the general consensus sort of agrees with you, and we know that while we expect Tyreek Hill's departure to be, a factor for Mahomes, I think it's getting overvalued by the fantasy community as we see his ADP continue to drop. As noted on one of our recent episodes, the departure of an elite weapon doesn't always affect the quarterback as drastically as we expect. For example, the year that Deshaun Watson lost DeAndre Hopkins, he went on to average more fantasy points per game the following year. And I wouldn't be shocked to see something similar happen here, just with all of the replacement talent that you mentioned the Chiefs have acquired this offseason. So you said that the tier drop for you after the top 4 is where you look at the next group of guys. So we have Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow in a different order, but these are our next 3 quarterbacks. Are they in a tier together for you, or is there even another tier drop in between, say, Jalen Hurts and Kyler and Joe Burrow? You mentioned that Hurts is sort of the only other guy besides, Lamar Jackson that has that league-winning rushing upside. So where's the tier break for you at this point?
I do think that the tier break would be after Joe Burrow for me, personally. I have Brady as my QB8, so maybe you can include Brady in that. But just for, conversation's sake, I do think that this tier ends after Joe Burrow. Obviously, you have Kyler and Jalen Hurts, and who are two rushing quarterbacks, two quarterbacks that I think should finish in the top 3 in rushing yards for the quarterback position. And then Joe Burrow is obviously just in one of the best situations in the league with an amazing cast of skill position players, and I just think his upside on a weekly basis includes like 504. So he just has that elite upside as a pure pocket passer that we want in best ball. But yeah, I would have Jalen Hurts as my QB5 just because I think that all of the moves the Eagles have made indicate that they're going to throw the ball more. They obviously went out, traded for A.J. Brown. They signed Zach Pascal. They still have Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins, and that should round out their top 4. They still have Dallas Goedert, a solid backfield of pass catchers, and I think that the Eagles want to throw the ball. Jalen Hurts just didn't have the players last year, and so they trended more run heavy. And then I think they'll design runs for him as well. So Jalen Hurts was a top 6 quarterback option pretty much all year last year, and I just think he has a higher ceiling this year than Kyler and Joe Burrow. Kyler would be my quarterback 6 just because of his rushing upside, but obviously the loss of DeAndre Hopkins hurts him a little bit, and we've seen it over the last couple of years with D-Hop. When D-Hop is out, Kyler's production drops pretty significantly, and his fantasy output drops as well. And for some reason, Kyler is just, over the last few seasons as well, he's just gotten worse as the year goes along. It seems like he always starts out hot and then kind of flames out towards the end of the year. And then Joe Burrow would be my quarterback 7, and yeah, that's the tier for me personally.
The thing with Hurts is what he does as a rusher is just so unique. It's really only him and Lamar, like you mentioned. Last year, he more than doubled his rushing output from his rookie season, had 139 rush attempts in 15 games for almost 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. And I think that even if this team leans more pass heavy, they're still going to be focusing on Jalen Hurts rushing and that dynamic that it adds to the offense. For me, the thing that gives Hurts the slight edge over Kyler is just the addition of an elite weapon in A.J. Brown. And like you said, for Kyler, the splits with him and DeAndre Hopkins have been telling. Hopkins is going to miss the first 6 games. And I think that could be an issue for him. So that's why I've got Hurts at 5, Kyler at 7. And Joe Burrow, I mean, like you said, just the weekly upside is so high. The offensive line should be better with this team. If they get just a little bit more pass heavy, then, sky's the limit. Like, he could easily have a season like Justin Herbert had last year, where he's a top 3 quarterback just based off of, elite efficiency, touchdowns, and the weapons that he has on the offense to carry him there. So I think that this is a pretty solid top 7. I look at the top 4 as guys that are, highly likely to finish within the top 5. And then I look at, Hurts, Burrow, and Murray as slightly less likely, but still with the upside to finish as potential, top 3 quarterbacks. So these are the top tier upside quarterbacks. And after that, this is the point where our rankings start to get a little bit different. You have QB8 as Tom Brady. I have him at 11 behind an entirely different tier of players. So I guess talk about why you're still so high on Brady despite the loss of Gronk, despite the temporary absence of Godwin, and the I don't know, just your thoughts on Brady here.
I think that obviously losing some key position players in Godwin and Gronk will definitely hurt Tom Brady's ceiling, but I think just the overall offensive efficiency will be, top 5, top 6 in the NFL. I think the pass rate will be one of the highest in the league. Tampa Bay was first in pass rate last year. They were 10th in pass rate. in 2020. So in the 2 seasons that Brady has been at Tampa Bay, they've been top 10 in passing offense. Obviously, Brady was very good last year in fantasy football, averaged 22 plus points per game, finished as the overall quarterback 3 in terms of total points. So I just think that while he doesn't have the rushing upside as some of the guys behind him, which you could definitely make the case that they can be above Brady for that reason. I just think Brady has one of the highest ceilings as a pure pocket passer. And at the end of the day, these guys are quarterbacks, and to really hit your ceiling in fantasy football, you have to be efficient through the air. Like I know we all love rushing upside and whatnot, but a lot of these quarterbacks are only going to average, 20, 30 yards per game. That's an extra 2 to 3 points. But if they're not efficient through the air and throwing touchdowns and whatnot, they're really never going to hit their ceiling. And I just think Brady is still one of the best pure pocket passers in the league, and he showed his upside last year when everybody was down on him as a 9th round pick, 10th round pick, and for that reason, I would have him above guys like Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, etc.
Yeah, and I mean you're somewhat in line with ADP. I mean, this whole tier of guys is going right next to each other. Russ is ADP 77, Brady is 81, Lance is 85, Dak is 86. So like these guys are all going very tightly. I think a lot of it, for me is going to depend on the build, going to depend on what stacks I'm trying to finish off. Like it could easily be the difference for me of where I'm taking Brady as to whether I have Mike Evans on my team or, if I have Cortland Sutton coming out of the 4th, I'm probably leaning Russ. Or if I took CD in the 2nd, I'm probably leaning Dak. So a lot of this stuff to me is just going to come down to team construction, which is really important to understand why players are in tiers, I think, which is always how I look at rankings and, gauging upside. So yeah, I think Brady's upside is in line with all these guys. The difference for me having Russ at 8 versus Brady at 11 and vice versa, it's marginal at best. So a lot of it's going to be about stacks. I think all of these guys do have the potential. We've seen it. Russell Wilson has been a top 5 quarterback at many points throughout his career. Dak Prescott, 2 years ago was QB1 for the first half of the season before he went down. He flashed upside again last year. Trey Lance is really the one mystery piece in this offense. Both of us are relatively high on him. You have him as QB9. I have him as QB10. His ADP is QB10. So we are pretty much in line with the market in terms of buying Trey Lance as a breakout in his first official year as a starter.
Yeah, I think that Trey Lance obviously has some of the qualities that we want in a fantasy quarterback, and that's just his potential rushing upside. In the games that Trey Lance did play last year, he ran the football quite a bit. And maybe that's because he wasn't a great passer, so Kyle Shanahan was just playing to his strengths. I believe in that Cardinals game, he had over 15 rushing attempts. So you're really just not getting that kind of rushing upside out of any quarterback in the league besides maybe a few in Lamar and Jalen Hurts. So if we see Trey Lance have games with 10-plus rushing attempts and some goal line work, I think he could definitely finish top 10 in fantasy. I think the only issue with Trey Lance is we haven't seen it, right? So we don't really know if he's a good quarterback or not. Because like I was just saying with Tom Brady, to ultimately hit your ceiling, especially with these dual threat quarterbacks, they also have to be efficient through the air. And I think that's kind of where a guy like Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson slack a little bit, but they can make up for it with rushing. If they're decent enough. Is he decent enough through the air to potentially hit his ceiling when you combine that with his potential rushing upside? That's really the only thing that we don't know at this point in time.
Yeah, we don't. And that's why I personally have him below Russ and Dak, just because I think if he puts up a, mid-range quarterback one finish on the season, if he puts up, some Dak Prescott, Russ Wilson-esque numbers, I think we look at that as a success and look at it, something that he can build on, in 2023 after showing us something. But it's just hard to imagine him coming in and being like a top 5 quarterback right off rip. Especially if that offense remains extremely run heavy. We don't know whether or not it will with the departure of Mike McDaniel. So Lance, I think, has a wide range of outcomes and certainly a very high week-to-week ceiling just because of the rushing. So we'll see. I'll still be taking a lot of shots on Lance. I think he's like the perfect high-end QB2 if you go QB early and you want to mix in Lance and just have absolutely elite production at quarterback all year. He's a guy I look at to do some of those things.